Oh, pretend I'm talking. Here, I'm standing away from the microphone, not talking.
You can sit next to her. I want to listen to Mary. She's got so much wisdom.
Wisdom.
I have to sit close so I can hear what's going on.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Presbyterians lock you down in your pews. Jeez. Really captive. Woo. Okay. A couple more coming in and then I'll start. So come on in and sit down, you folks. That's right.
I hope each outburst is melodious. There you go.
Come on, people, hurry up. Okay, is everybody getting a good seat? Find yourself a place where you can hear, see up here. It's more to hear than to see, but where you're near your neighbors. And let's settle in for a lovely afternoon. Come on, folks. Okay, I'm Mary McTammany, and I'm the president of the Historical Society of Newburgh Bay and the Highlands. Yay! That's one. And we have partnered today with this glorious Calvary Presbyterian Church just down the street from our headquarters, a block to the north. And we welcome you to this 1858 sanctuary, a real architectural gem that luckily has lasted in Newburgh all these years in this wonderful spot, despite having a really scary fire a few years ago. We had a program here after the restoration with the fire department as our honored guests. And it's beautiful to be back in this sanctuary the last couple of years and celebrate the fact that we have an anchor in downtown Newburgh and a church that is so busy with so many activities. You see that on the tables when you come in. It's got a great story to tell. There is in your pews when you first enter and open your door, because this seems to be one of those denominations that locks you down when you get to church, and for a period of time. And so in your pew when you first come in, you find these wonderful little brochures that tell you the story of Calvary Church. So look through it, take one with you. I know they're willing to share. It's illustrated and it tells you a bit of where you have come to rest today for our program. And that's what I'm here to tell you about, that Calvary's been here since 1858, and our historical society that I represent has been here for over 140 years. And so we convene for all kinds of programs, but once a year we do this. We bring all our members together for something that we think will be especially interesting and special, and something that we will be sure to archive, record, and be part of the story of Newburgh. And so that's what we're doing here today. A quick year in review of our historical society is usually part of our annual meeting, and my best friend here, David McTammany, handed you, many of you, a little packet of information when you came in, and what that is a calendar of our programs and events, our archive workshops, background on what we have been and will be doing. So I hope that you take some of those with you when you go. A quick year in review tells you that we've hosted many programs, but what you don't recognize by just looking at a piece of paper is how popular they've become. I think coming out of COVID, people really want to savor the stories of their places. And so we have had record crowds to most of our events. Our historical society is headquartered in an old 1840 house down the street, and we have hosted so many people that they're often sitting on the staircase, peeking around the doorways to hear what we're talking about, and we're pleased about that. So we've made maximum use of that old building with lectures in the parlors, but also workshops in the old servants' quarters, exhibits in the long-ago laundry room, a steady parade of researchers marching up and down the historic old circular staircase to go up to our archives that are in the old bedrooms. And so it's a busy place like this church, and we welcome you to get involved with us. Certainly, we welcome you to join us. And so part of what is available for you today is a membership envelope. Even if you don't join, for heaven's sakes, open it up and put your name and address and email and give that back to us, because that puts you on our mailing list. And being a member puts you on the list for our newsletters and a lot of other history that you would otherwise miss if you can't come visit often. We are beginning preparation now as the year is coming to a fall close for our biggest event, our Candlelight Tour, which is kind of a signature event for the Historical Society for the last half century, where people will be coming to Newburgh to walk and tour and drive and see the inside of beautiful old buildings. It's also our largest annual fundraiser, so we hope you'll keep that date. It's always the second Sunday of December. Keep it on your calendar and come and enjoy Newburgh as the holiday season gets in gear. For the third year, we've hosted and we've been amazed at the response to our cocktails and collections. It's a cocktail hour. When people had stopped going out, we said, how are we going to bring them back? Let's give them a drink. Let's give them something to stare at. Let's bring something off the shelf. Let's bring something out of the cupboard. Let's tell a story of something that we have not explored properly and that they never knew about. And it has taken off. We've had 60, 70, 80 people in there on Thursday night, some of whom say to us, I didn't know what you were going to talk about this month, but I knew it was Third Thursday and I thought I'd come and find out. So that is really a treat for us. We're very proud of it. It allowed us to win the Greater Hudson Heritage Network, which is the regional museum agency for downstate New York. This year we won their award for excellence for that Thursday night series, Cocktails and Collections. Meanwhile, we partner with other groups doing interesting programs in Newburgh. This Friday, you'll see an art installation begin to rise on our lawn as part of the Terrain Biennial. We cooperate with art organizations. Every year you can sit on our property and listen to music strains coming off of our big portico as part of Porch Fest, We always host one of the concerts for Porch Fest. And Archtober will begin in a couple of weeks. If you're not familiar with that, that's Architecture in October. It's a movement that started in New York City and has spread up the valley, and Newburgh has gotten very engaged in Archtober, doing walking tours, doing lessons on all kinds of things about our built environment and what is beautiful and special about it. And so this year, our Historical Society will host a program that's part of the handouts that we gave you. Well, there are also some of those handouts in by the refreshments when we disperse and ask questions over lemonade. That our program will be family friendly. So it will be for parents and children, and it will be a chance to kind of cut and paste and learn the beauty of different buildings and build a story of a structure in a zine format. I'm a little too old to appreciate zines yet, but I'm going to go and learn. Kids use zines a lot in school, and it's just kind of a cut and paste, simple way to create a magazine about something that you're studying. So the other part of our business every year in our annual meeting is to reaffirm our leadership. And so you will find on your agenda, which looks like this, it has an etching of the church on the top. On your agenda, you will find a list of we board members from the Historical Society on the back. And I think most of them are here present today. I won't call all the names and make you all rise. That takes some time. But I will point out the fact that in addition to the 11 of us, our director is here today too, and that's an announcement we are happy to make, that the gentleman who's been our kind of archivist office manager, we were able to come up with the resources to promote him to the title executive director. And so Jeff Doolittle is here with us somewhere, way in the back, way in the back. But that's because he's doing handouts and door duty, et cetera. But Jeff is the voice and the face of the Historical Society and the one who keeps volunteers flowing through the doors, who keeps programming coming in and out of the doors, and we're very grateful to have him. So to lead our organization and Jeff, we have put our heads together and, asked everybody, come on, change your service a little bit and see what you can do for us. And so at the bottom of the back of your agenda is the list of proposed 2026 officers, and it is our obligation to introduce them to you and to ask you to confirm their service for the year 2026. And that will be the following: Jonathan Hamill, who's right here in front of me. Maybe this time you could stand. Jonathan has agreed to serve as president. Roy Spells, I know he's here, I saw him, there he is. As vice president. Also Varvara Mikushkina, who couldn't be with us. She got stuck with her family in Massachusetts and couldn't make it over the Route 90 today, but she will also be second vice president. Alan Crawford, I didn't see him come in, but Alan Crawford will be our treasurer, if you approve, and I will be the secretary. So I will slide out of the president's chair and down to the other side of the table. So if that suits our membership and our friends who are here today, you don't vote if you're not a member, by the way. If you haven't really joined us, just listen. Are there any people in the audience who are members who would like to just thrust themselves forward to lead this organization with us? Because this is your moment in Robert's Rules of Order to offer nominations from the floor. Nobody craves these offices. All right. One more time. Is there anyone else? Okay. Hearing no other nominations, may we have a vote, or may the secretary, that would be me soon, may the secretary cast one vote for the slate of officers that I read. All in favor? Aye. All right. All right. We have new leadership for the new year. And now, Now we have new moment of programming for the fall and the end of the old year, and that is the program we're here for today. You're sitting in a beautiful sanctuary with wonderful acoustics, and we have a grand piano and a grand pianist, and we have Dr. Christopher Brellick from SUNY Schenectady, who came to us about 7 years ago and started to do research on his specialty in the music field, which is the music of the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age has kind of taken off in American imagination because of movies and TV shows, starting with Downton Abbey perhaps, or others. What was the sound that people heard at that turn of the century? What was going on in their ears and in their social lives? It turns out that in all of Chris's research of the music that was heard by Americans at that time, there's a Newburgher who played a big role, and we didn't realize that. It's one of those hidden gems that you learn about your community. That over on Liberty Street, across from Washington's headquarters, is an old brick and stone building with the word Alsdorf over the curved arch. That's Alsdorf Hall, a music school. Inside there were 3 brothers who were the 3rd generation Alsdorfs to live in Newburgh, all musicians, going back to their grandfather who taught music and dance before the Civil War down at the grandest hotel in Newburgh along the waterfront. And finally, the 3 brothers who taught instrumental music and dance and composed. And today is the story of the youngest and the last of the Alsdorfs, Ulysses, who it turns out had quite a rich life of composition in music. And Dr. Brellick, in his research, has discovered music by Ulysses Alsdorf in the far-flung archives around the world, in this country, overseas. So we have an unsung, unplayed, in a lot of cases, musical legend among us, and we didn't really sing his story until today. So today I introduce to you Dr. Christopher Brellick, who will tell the story of Ulysses Alsdorf, and Joseph Henry Bush, who is the artist in residence here at Calvary, and will play tunes on the piano so that we can hear, we can enjoy, we can record for posterity. So if you haven't heard Joseph before, you're in for a treat. If you haven't heard Joseph play that Skinner organ up in the balcony, which is a rare gem, come back and hear that, because it rattles the neighborhood, not just the pews. So music and lots of history happen in these walls, lots of Newburgh walls, but particularly these and particularly today. So let me turn it over to Dr. Christopher Brellick.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to be here. Thank you. So, we're going to give you a little bit of a window into black music in Newburgh during the Gilded Age. And what's exciting about this is that the story is very much an American story. Ulysses' grandfather was emancipated by New York State by the Manumission Act in 1827. They went on to kind of they took on the slave owner's last name, Alsdorf, so that was a Dutch name, and they farmed for a while to save some money, and then settled here in Newburgh. They ended up being entrepreneurs, and were very, very successful. So they had a hair salon, a bakery, catering business, and you know a family's done well when they've decided that their kids can be musicians. Because I know my mother had questions when I said, "Mom, I'm going to be a musician." So the Alsdorfs did pretty good, well enough that they were able to send their sons to New York City, starting with Dubois, was sent to study in New York City, and come back, and then they ran orchestras that performed not only here in Newburgh, not only in the Hudson Valley, but all the way up to Saratoga and Lake George. So they traveled, they took the show on the road, so to speak. And so what's really neat is to kind of have a seat, take a peek into this point in history. And now I'm particularly happy to meet Joe here. And I've really been unfair to Joe, I have to admit. I basically sent him a whole bunch of music and said, Joe, quick, learn all of this music real fast. So we all understand that this is not a recital. This is really a conversation and an examples that Joe has so kindly agreed to provide for us. Because we can talk about the music, but we really need to hear it to really understand. So I'm so happy that Joe agreed. As Mary was saying, and actually before I get to that, it's interesting that there was a whole banner project up and down Liberty Street, and Ulysses J. Alsdorf was the picture on that, which begs the question: who was this person? And we see about the Alsdorf School of Dancing and the roof garden, and we would need magnifying glasses, but Ulysses is in that picture. He's in there, and so that there was this marvelous school of music. And I actually taught with a friend of mine who grew up in Newburgh before moving to Long Island. She's written many books about music, but she grew up here in Newburgh. Her name's Sylvia Kahan. She grew up in the 1950s, early 60s, and she was saying how amazing the public schools in Newburgh were for music. Really fantastic. And she went to Long Island, and they didn't hold a candle. And so she was very appreciative, because she's had a whole career in music because of the music that has been so strong in Newburgh from the Alsdorfs and their amazing contribution to the power of music in this city. So I think that's really special. But my journey began when I moved to the Hudson Valley, and I started taking tours. I took a tour of Crawford House, just down the road, and I was a wise guy. Anytime I went on a tour, I'd be like, can I play the piano? Can I play, Hyde Park, Vanderbilt Mansion, can I play the piano? And every time they'd be like, no, it's an antique, you can't just play it, except Crawford House. They were the first people to say, yes, Chris, you may play the piano. And I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was, because as soon as I played the piano, it reverberated throughout the house. It floated, it bounced. And of course, I was surprised, but I shouldn't be, because if you think about the architects of that time, of course they considered acoustics and live music when they designed every single house. And of course, that was important, because that's how you entertained yourself. No Spotify, no CDs, no 8-tracks, no vinyl. It was live music was what it was about. So everything kind of came together. And my goal was, when I visited these historic sites, it was wonderful to see the landscape design, the architecture, the interior design, the artwork, but there was always something that was blatantly missing on all of these tours. No actual music. All art forms were represented except for music. So that 7 years ago, and I really have to thank Crawford House, because they were the first to say yes to me doing this, is to put on music in historic places and do it a little bit different than the kind of classical music tradition that I love, which is you develop an awesome program, you learn it, and then you take it to as many locations as possible to share that wonderful music with people. And I love that. But there's another way to do things as well, and that's to develop a program that is unique to the place you're going to hear it. And that's kind of what this program is about, and it's what I did at Crawford House. It was back for Mother's Day, back in 2018, so it's been a little while, and I've been doing a lot of work since then. And so when I had the opportunity to come to this wonderful church and to continue the tradition there, that idea, I jumped at this opportunity. So let me just grab my... Be able to do this without my glasses, but that is not the case. So what jumped out to me is that the organ, as wonderful as this organ is, it wasn't the original organ. There was another organ that was installed in 1860. It cost $3,000 at the time. And the one we have now is from 1937. So we got a whole story unfolding through not only the Gilded Age, but not before the Gilded Age, which essentially starts around 1865. Some people will say 1870. I consider the end of the Civil War as really the beginning, and the beginning of the First World War as the end. Some people have a narrow, say 1870 to 1900, but I think that's what we're talking about. So another neat little fact that I was learning about it is Thomas Edison convinced the trustees of this church to put in some electricity. So it was one of the first churches in New York State to have electricity. So how neat is that? When I first did my performance at Crawford House, the Historical Society was generous enough to give me some of this Alsdorf music, because I was unfamiliar with this composer. None of his music is published. Most of his music is not even available in libraries. And so they gave me a few pieces, but it sparked my interest to be like, I should be on the lookout for more music. So I was able to go and travel over to London a few years ago, and so I said, I'm going to stop by the British Library, because I started doing some research, and I found out they had more Alsdorf music in London than they have here in New York. Right? How crazy is that? But you know what's wonderful about exploring history? I think I found out the reason why. I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. So right here, I'm going to point out a few things, because the story is always being uncovered. It's always unfurling. You never get to the end. That's what makes it so exciting. So who is, so to the ladies of the Powelton Club. So I said, well, I don't know, what is that? So the Powelton Club still, how many of you know the Powelton Club? Exactly. So it started off and became one of the preeminent kind of golf courses, tennis clubs in the United States early on. So formally organized March 29th in 1882 by Homer Ramsdale, one of Newburgh's leading businessmen. In the same year, the United States Lawn Tennis Association was founded, and the Powelton Club was among the 33 charter members. The growing club had 2 tennis courts, a windmill to water the courts, and a summer house to provide shelter for the guests. By the end of 1882, membership stood at 160 people, with a majority of females, which is kind of an interesting piece of information. So we can see Ulysses did a lot. He had a lot of dedications. He would dedicate his pieces to organizations and people. So we can see that this is one of his first, and this was written in 1893, just so that we can set the stage. Ulysses was born in 1872, so at the age of 21, this was a piece. Now, this is the first piece I found of his. I'm sure he wrote things earlier, but it is published by Oliver Ditson, which we're going to talk about later, but that's a major publishing company. It's not like some little handwritten scrap that he did on his own. This was published and sent out across the country, and so that's kind of a unique thing. So I think without further ado, we should listen to Joe here as he serenades us with the piece Ulysses J. Alsdorf wrote and had published when he was 21 years old, 1893. So one of the things that I'm going to have you pay attention and draw your attention to is that Alsdorf would have really liked to put the melody into the left hand for contrast. And you heard that a little bit in that last piece, and you're going to hear it again. So this is an interactive presentation, so you're going to have some homework. I'm going to say, like, you need to listen for this, and don't worry, at a certain point I'm going to ask you all to be singing as well, so prepare thyself. His next piece, also published by the Oliver Ditson Company from 1894, is called Mine Ever Waltz. Both this last piece and this piece were pieces that I photographed at the British Library in London. So let's talk a little bit about Oliver Ditson. Oliver Ditson was born 1811 and died in 1888. So this is after he's established the company when this is being published. He was a bookstore worker turned entrepreneur who was a partner in a music publishing business that started in Boston in 1835, then gained national prominence under his personal direction in the middle years of the 19th century and had a great deal of success well into the 20th century. So again, Ulysses J. Alsdorf is not being published by just anybody. It's being published by a very reputable company. This specific piece has an introduction that's kind of sets this tone, and then it has a set of 3 waltzes with a small coda, which means a tail end and a reprise of some of that music. What's unique about this is that it models itself on the Viennese waltzes. Austria, Vienna, Johann Strauss, the Waltz King. It has those influences, but it puts it straight away into a minor key. So the minor key has a bit more somberness and weightiness to it. So you're going to hear that. So, Joe, if you would please. Yes, you may ask a question.
Who was Eva M. White? Was that his girl?
You know, this is the beautiful thing about history.
Come on now.
I don't know.
Are you serious? Oh,
Listen, I even asked the big guns. I asked Mary, and Mary didn't know.
she didn't know.
So this is a mystery.
Pretend it has to be.
I know what the year this is. This is 1894. So this is a challenge for you all.
That's
A little homework.
That's a girlfriend.
Now, Ulysses never got married,
I'm trying to say that's a little girl.
but it might be. It might be.
So, I think so. That's a beautiful.
But then why do you write her such a minor? Was it didn't already quite happen? Maybe is that the minor side of it?
Oh, it was a love interest on one side.
It could have been. So it was interesting. So how many of you have watched that HBO series, The Gilded Age? So in season 3, which just finished up this summer, there's a scene where Oscar is in the Haymarket and he's going to confront Maud Beaton, who stole a bunch of his money. The song playing in the background was a minor waltz. That minor waltz was my suggestion because they hired me as the consultant and they were stuck on what music to use. Mine Ever Waltz could have been a good choice too. This could have been a good choice for that scene. So next piece, let's keep moving forward, because he's prolific. The Orange County Fair Waltz, published by Oliver Ditson Company again, 1895. Again, I got this from the British Library in London. Dedicated to the Orange County Agricultural Society. I told you he's going to dedicate things. He's smart. He's a musician. He needs to make money here. And you got to have patrons and you got to show your appreciation. So the Orange County Agricultural Society was formed in 1841 and held the first Orange County Fair on November 17th, 1841. So it's a well-established fair by the time Ulysses writes this piece. And it happens to be the oldest county fair in New York. Now, I don't know, I would imagine the Alsdorf family probably performed music because the Orange County Fair has a long history of having music. Let's jump forward to 1983. 1983. That was the Beach Boys. 1984 was Huey Lewis and the News, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Stray Cats. I'm just imagining them if they really knew that they were carrying on the Alsdorf tradition of the Orange County Fair Waltz. They probably didn't know about that. This is why we're here today. So let's take a listen to a song that was dedicated and intended for a county fair. So if I close my eyes, especially at the beginning, I picture that merry-go-round at the county fair. I picture that merry-go-round. Now we're changing gears a little bit. This is 1897, Ramsdale Park March. This is published by W.F. Conkling of Newburgh, New York. So no longer Oliver Ditson. It's now being published by a local publishing company. And one of the things that's fascinating about Newburgh is how many publishing companies, piano builders, manufacturers, all happened in this city. So this one's dedicated to the Ramsdells. And this, I mentioned briefly with the Powelton Club. Homer Ramsdell was a prominent businessman in the 19th century. So Homer Ramsdell, prominent citizens, he worked in shipping, banking, business, eventually became president of the Erie Railroad. And we cannot underestimate how important those railroads were for the Gilded Age, and transportation, where hey, if there's a place in the country that can do something far more efficiently, wouldn't it be great to put that on a train, ship it, and get it so that every community could do what it does best? And then you transport that to the other communities and share it with them. And that's really one of the pivotal things that are, when we have the Gilded Age, just the speed of prosperity and how quickly that happened. So from a country that was a colony to a country that was torn apart by a civil war to, by the time we get to the 20th century, leading superpower in the world. That happens during this period. This happens during Ulysses J. Alsdorf. And this music, to a certain extent, should help us understand what it felt like to be in a time where the progress was happening that quickly. So this was, and on the cover here, it'll say, another hit by the composer of the popular DeGarmo two-step. Does anyone have a copy of the DeGarmo two-step? Can't find it. Couldn't find it over in London. Couldn't find it here. Now, I know some of you have had families that have been here for a while. Have you been to the attic? Would you go to the attic for me? And if you find something, contact the Historical Society here in Newburgh, because some of this music is still missing. Now, take even a closer look at the bottom of this. We're hearing is solo piano, and a lot of his music was solo piano. But if you look at this, there's a lot of other versions of this song that existed. There's one for band. There's one that says for 14 instruments. So that was what we would call a theater orchestra. So violin, viola, cello, bass, a couple of woodwinds, a couple of brass instruments, for a 10-person orchestra, for 2 banjos. I want this music. You have a homework assignment. Talk to friends and family. See if you have any of this music in the attic. It was popular. It was published right here in Newburgh. It's got to be somewhere. We've got to find it. All right, please, yes. Talk to people. Let's take a look here. This is an advertisement that Mary shared with me of W.F. Conkling, Newburgh, New York. And it basically lists why they're the best. They make the best pianos at the best prices, the most reliable. So not only did they publish music, they made pianos. And think about, again, as we're having this window of time capsule, time travel back to the Gilded Age, you finally make it to middle class. You kind of get a chance to, now you get to have some entertainment in the house. You don't go buy the big screen TV. You buy a piano. And then now you get to have entertainment in your own home after dinner. And the way that you showed you were educated, you learned how to read, you learned how to write, you learned how to play music. Those were the things, right? So we have the Conkling Company here in Newburgh helping make that happen. Now, Ramsdale Park, that park doesn't quite exist. It's been transformed. Now it looks like that. It's not how it looked like in 1897, just so you know. It is now the Delano Hitch Recreation Park on 27 acres that was donated to the city of Newburgh by Annie Delano Hitch, an aunt of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in 1916. So Ulysses was still alive, but he wrote it for the Ramsdale Park, which is what it was prior. This again has that classic Ulysses J. Alsdorf melody in the left hand. And it's tricky because this stuff is not easy. It can move quite along at various tempos, and let's see how. Let's give another round of applause for Joe, who's got his work cut out for him on this one. Let's take a listen. Published in 1900, turn of the century, with a new publisher. This one is M. Whitmark and Sons of New York, and is respectfully dedicated to the American colleges. It's called In College Colors. Whitmark and Sons was a leading publisher of sheet music, especially for Tin Pan Alley. So Tin Pan Alley is late 1880s into the all the way really up into the 1950s or so. But that heyday this is right in the heyday of Tin Pan Alley. The firm of Marcus Whitmark and Sons was established in New York City in 1886. The father, Marcus Whitmark, was the legal head of the company, but from the beginning it was run by his sons, Isidore, Julius, and Jay, who were under legal age when the company started. Their ages were from 14 to 17 years old, and they started a company that ends up being a leading publishing company in the world. Pretty impressive. They started out publishing their own compositions. They were adept at plugging songs, which means kind of like singing them, demonstrating them in order to sell the sheet music. And then within a few years, they were publishing the works of such composers as Victor Herbert and George M. Cohan, who were major composers of that time period. And it's interesting, I know that I recently did a bunch of research for a historic house museum in Albany, New York. And it was on the music owned by William James Knapp, who was a black musician, again in the Gilded Age, a little bit earlier than Ulysses. And he was a performer, a piano tuner. He wasn't a composer, but he had a collection of well over 200 compositions. And so I went through those compositions and I tried to say, well, what does this music reveal? And a lot of them had a stamp on where it was purchased. So I started plotting it on a map. And it came to the realization that about every 3 blocks, there was a store selling sheet music in downtown Albany during the Gilded Age. So you go out, you need to get some meat for dinner, and then you get some sheet music for entertainment. You then go and get some, pick up the laundry, and you're like, oh, I got a waltz, but I really need a 2-step. Let me stop by this other store and pick up a 2-step on the way home. It's really that was part of the lifestyle. And so it's so interesting to realize that these publishing companies, not only the ones here in Newburgh, where you could walk down the street and buy some sheet music, but in New York City and Albany, every city had sheet music publishing, because that's what people bought for entertainment. So in 1888, M. Whitmark and Sons relocated to 32 East 14th Street in Manhattan, becoming the first music publishing company to settle in what was the theater district at that time. Isidore found the contracts, made the deals to handle the business. Julius sang and demonstrated the songs, there becoming the first song pluggers in the young industry. Some of the publisher's earlier song hits included After the Ball, which is one of the more famous pieces from the Gilded Age. Whitmark originated the practice of giving free professional copies of their new music to famous and established singers and bands, which provided so successful an advertising method that it was copied by the rest of the music publishers. When the international copyright law was passed in 1891, and here you thought international copyright was just all been around forever. No, 1891, international copyright law. Whitmark pioneered publishing versions of British music in the United States and arranging for American hits to be published in the UK. Remember what I said at the beginning about why did I find so much of his music in the British Library? I wonder if M. Whitmark kind of established that publishing with London, and London was like, oh, let's pick up some of his older stuff as well and just put it in our library in these collections. So a lot of this music is not one-off pieces. They take a whole bunch of music, they put it they get it bound. So like every house, not every household, but many households would buy individual pieces of sheet music, and then they would take it to a binder. And they put all their favorite hits together in this binding, this like big thick book, maybe this thick, of their favorite sheet music. So that's a lot of that earlier stuff that's dedicated to, like, down the road Powelton Club was sitting in the British Library, probably because of this practice and this collaboration. Now, this is the first piece of his that I found that has words. Now, it's not a song, it really is a piano piece, but he started to get into the practice of putting in songs, usually about halfway, 2/3 of the way through the song. So let me just, we're not gonna sing this one for you, we're gonna have the solo piano version, but it's called In College Colors, and the words are, when the girls are out for fun, their hearts are quickly won. They fan the flames and learn our names, but call us conquerors. They're always looking neat, tonight extremely sweet, in colors, in colors, in college colors. And then there's a section where it goes, rah, rah, rah. And then they start shouting out the names of colleges. He has this written in. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colleges named by Ulysses J. Ellsdorf. Name those colleges. Columbia is one. Vassar is another. Princeton is another. Harvard is another. Yale. Not Union. Not Brown. Penn. Last one is in Ithaca, New York, where I grew up. Cornell. There you go. So it goes Yale, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia, Princeton, Penn, Vassar. Rah, rah, rah. Exactly right. Look at that fancy cover. Full color. Fun After School, published by M. Whitmark and Sons. This is in 1903, respectfully dedicated to the boys and girls of America. This one, so let's take a little minute to consider our history here. And talk a little bit more about the Alsdorf family. They were here in Newburgh, and Ulysses was on many different boards. And he interacted with every walk of life here in Newburgh. Black, white, all different types. And one of the things that we think about as the 20th century begins is the invention of another style of music that really came about by the combination of African and European musical elements coming together. And that's the birth of jazz. And that has its foundations in the Gilded Age. And in the music of Ulysses J. Alsdorf, I think is a great example of both of those elements. So up until this point in his compositions, they're primarily European in style. They are kind of in the style of like John Philip Sousa, marches, the style of Johann Strauss and the Viennese waltzes. But in this piece, we start to hear something new. And we start to hear ragtime. And there's really two aspects, ragtime and the blues. Now, they've been going on during this period, the Gilded Age. But they're starting to, the European music and the African music are starting to come together at the end of the Gilded Age in a way that creates jazz. And you can hear that. And so that's, again, another part of your assignment. First off, it starts off in a minor key, a little bit unusual. And then we start hearing these ragtime syncopations, which meaning instead of having all the music kind of go like da dun dun dun, bum 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 bum, everything's kind of with the snap. You start to get da 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 da. You get da 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 da. All these things that are not with the snap. There's a certain type of syncopation that's unique to ragtime, and Ulysses J. Alsdorf is using that. So in addition to those rhythmic syncopations, he uses what in Western European music we would call a lower chromatic neighbor tone. It's a mouthful, I know. But it also is very reminiscent of the blues. And you can hear that. It has some neat little spots. So there's in the very last section, it says whistle, first time only. So there's a whistling part. There's also words, that's fun after school, that's fun after school, in football or baseball or golf or ping pong. Fun's the rule. We're never excited, but always united, and grin if we win, that's fun after school. So, let me just pull this open here, because I want to follow along and kind of ask you all to listen for those syncopations, which I think you will hear. So I think Alsdorf is really situated in a very interesting point, somewhere between combining John Philip Sousa and Scott Joplin and showing how these different musical traditions can come together in a unified musical work. And I think that's probably the real significance of his music. Another beautiful cover. Spread the News, Busy Bees, published by M. Whitmark and Sons. This is 1905, and very often a composer gets a style and they just stick with it. And it's interesting that Ulysses starts with this kind of march two-step, gets into ragtime, but he doesn't stay there. This piece kind of goes back to the more march style that he started with. It does not have any of those ragtime rhythms in it, but it's very theatrical. Wait till you hear this, okay? So the opening, Joe, has the lyrics, want a paper, want a paper, right? It's like we're gonna sell some newspapers here. And in the music, he has the word buzz very frequently. So I'm gonna cue you. We're all gonna buzz. And you know, I'll cue you, and we're all gonna go buzz. Because it says, this is what Ulysses wanted us to do. He said, buzz, imitate humming sound of bees. So there's an introduction, we're not gonna be buzzing. Then there's the first section. You're not gonna do the repeat, right? 2 buzzes. We're then gonna go to the second section, no buzzing. We go back to the first section, 2 more buzzes. And then there's the trio. Now the trio, this is too complicated for handle without a rehearsal. But the words are, over land and seas spread the news, busy bees. Busy bees, buzz, buzz, buzz. Busy bee, buzz, buzz. Treat the girls to pie, let them read while they fly. Busy bees, buzz, 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 buzz. Then there's instructions to whistle. There's more buzzing. There's a coda where it says, want an extra, because now that we've had the paper, it's time to sell you extra, extra. So there's that, and then at the very end, has written, spoken. The latest topics may be introduced. All about the strike, all about our candidate, all about the wedding, all about the ball game, all about the football game, etc., etc., etc. That's a theatrical person right there. Given our time, we are only going to be able to handle the buzzes. So you've got a total of 4 buzzes, and I'm going to cue you, but just as a little preview, Joe, could you play that first repeated section with yeah. 1. Bzzz. Ready? Good. Joe, I think we're ready. Take it away, sir. Well done, well done. Bravo. That was a warm-up for the real one. This is boom, boom, boom it up. Tempo de marche. And this one's the sing-along, folks. So we're gonna do a quick rehearsal here, make sure we know our stuff. This one goes back to that ragtime syncopation, and it's got lyrics. This time, we're gonna do it together. All right, so I'll help you out. You're with me. We're gonna go boom, boom. That's our tempo. Boom, boom, boom it up. Boom, boom, boom it up. Wake up, Billy, Halsey, Liddy, get the broom and sweep the room. Boom, boom, boom it up. Boom, boom, boom it up. ABCs and work brings ease. Boom, boom, boom. Right, now, yeah, exactly right. Now again, he usually puts these lyrics in about halfway, 2/3 of the way through the song. So we gotta pay attention, we gotta listen, we gotta hang on his every note. He's gonna play a whole piece, it's gonna have that ragtime syncopation, it's gonna be fun. Then he's gonna play this big chord, and we launch in. Now I'm gonna join you all, but you gotta back me up here, you gotta help me out. All right.
Come on, bring the pain, baby, bring the pain.
Wake up, Billy, Hassel, Lily, get the broom and sweep the room. Boom, boom, boom it up. Boom, boom, boom it up. ABCs and work brings ease. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom it up. Boom, boom, boom it up. Wake up, Billy, hustle, Lily, get the broom and sweep the room. Boom, boom, boom it up. Boom, boom, boom it up. ABCs and work brings ease. Boom, boom, boom. So again, it shows and what's interesting about the Gilded Age is the range of music. This was the parlor music, the popular music of the time. But there was also symphonies and orchestras, and it was all there. And the difference between popular music and art music was not as wide as it is today. So it's very interesting. Let's jump forward to 1909, which was an important year for the Hudson Valley. This was the tricentennial of Henry Hudson and the centennial of Robert Fulton and his steamship. And how many times have you been on a committee and nobody can agree on anything?
100 gazillion times.
There was this committee of 100 people. You think they're going to agree on something?
You can't get 10 people.
They had to pick a theme song for this big celebration. Let me just tell you about the celebration. It starts off in New York City. They got a boat, and they're going to go up the Hudson River. There's all these events that happen. Wilbur Wright's going to fly his new fancy plane.
Right, yeah.
They're going to stop here in Newburgh.
Of course.
And, you know, you got to make sure there's some sizzle.
Yeah.
So Thomas Edison decides it's time that there's some electric lights on the Newburgh waterfront. So it gets electrified.
Yes.
They take a break here in Newburgh. They get back on the boat. They go all the way up to Albany. 100 people agreed that the theme song for the whole thing should be Dear Hudson Fulton Days by Ulysses J. Alsdorf. I mean, if you think about it, your grandfather was a slave, and now you are the theme song that 100 people agreed on for this celebration for the whole Hudson River.
That's America.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story. So just give you a sense of how the scope of this was. This was something I found in a antique shop up in Potsdam, New York. I was visiting the Crane School of Music, and I saw this. I was like, I must buy it. It's from the Phoenix Insurance Company. It's an the insurance companies are getting in on the deal, right? So they have this, and you open it up. It's got, you know, selling Phoenix Insurance, how good it is. It then gives you on the inside a write-up about the Hudson Fulton celebration, talking about Robert Fulton, Henry Hudson, and I mean, this is all just like, and then check this out. A reception at the Metropolitan Opera.
That's it.
That's fancy, like Met Gala.
Nice.
So you have that, and then they have an opening grand concert, also at the Met.
There you go.
I'm sorry, Carnegie Hall, right? So the Metropolitan Opera, founded in 1883. How do I know? Because in season 2 of HBO's The Gilded Age.
There you go. No, shouldn't be okay.
Now, I'm going to take a minute to brag. Forgive me. In season 1, episode 4, what was, before the Metropolitan Opera, where was the place to go hear music? Where was the place in New York City? Carnegie Hall hadn't been built until the 1890s. The Academy of Music. The Academy of Music. And that was the opera house that the Metropolitan Opera put out of business, because they had the old money folks, and they didn't want to make room for these new fancy rich people. They wanted to keep them out. So guess what the new fancy rich people did? They built their own opera company and put out the old folks out. They got out of business pretty quick. So in the Academy of Music, season 1, episode 4, yours truly was conducting. I was portraying John Knowles Payne conducting the Boston Symphony Orchestra at the Academy of Music. Thank you. That's another one of your homework assignments. Season 1, episode 4. You'll see this bald patch right here, and this sideburn. That was my close-up right here. Okay. It has lyrics, and you can read them along here, but we're not going to do a sing-along. We're going to just let Joe let us hear this one. From the top. anyone recognize any songs in there that he wove in?
My country too.
Yeah, My Country Sisters of You. Yeah. What else? Yankee Doodle. Star Spangled. Listen, this guy was clever. He knew his audience. He knew what he was writing for. This next one is called Root, Root in the Good Old Way. And so this one, was written in 1910, and he even gave you directions. He said this piece is particularly good for school and college. Dedicated to one and all interested in baseball, football, basketball, and other games. He makes sure he goes back to the ragtime feel. He's got some lyrics in this one. Some of these lyrics, it's interesting. Sometimes it's hard in our day and age to listen to this music and not think it's just a little silly. But I wonder if part of that is just because we're a little cynical. And so you have words like root, root in the good old way. Just wind yourself up tight. Root, root in the good old way. We'll raise the roof tonight. The American eagle knows no fear. Say any old thing, I love you, dear. Root, root in the good old way. Gee, you're all right. There's just maybe a sense of optimism that's unique to this time. And I do think Ulysses J. Alsdorf captures that optimism. So let's have Joe play for us, Root, Root in a Good Old Way. Yeah. Joe, what do you think about just taking that trio out one more time? The trio. And so give us our G. We got our lyrics up on the thing. Root, root. Yeah, let's give it a try, folks. 1, 2, ready, and root, root in the good old way. Root yourself up tight. Root, root in the good old way. We'll raise the roof tonight. Take an American eagle. Woo, this is tricky. Root, root in the good old way. Gee, you're all right. Listen, you get everyone in the family after dinner. You gather them around the piano. Everyone has to participate. The kids, the parents, the grandparents. And that means now it's time for a tip-top time. Another wonderful cover, also published by Whitmark, M. Whitmark. This one has some of those ragtime rhythms again. A lot of them do, as we get later on. This one is written in 1911. This is still pre-World War I. World War I changes the sensibility of music and culture, but we're still before that. And here, in the tip-top time, we can see what the lyrics are for this one. And again, these lyrics are kind of interesting in terms of all the kind of what it shows us. Actually, do we have that? Yeah. It's time for a tip-top time when the little birds are singing. It's time for a tip-top time when the wedding bells are ringing. But any time when your work is done is the time for a bunch of fun, fun, fun. It's time for a tip-top time. Hip, hip, hooray. Ding-a-ling. All right, Joe. Now, this is probably my favorite cover because we get to see Ulysses down at the bottom along with his brothers. You can see that right there on this cover of In America, published in 1912. He's got lyrics in this one too. They are, in America, we honor good firemen, good soldiers, and all great men. In America, we honor too the sailors true and vote like brave men. Then you have a little part where it goes, if old acquaintances be forgot, 3 cheers for the red, white, and blue. And so this is the last one time-wise that I've found. Now there's some other pieces that we're not performing today that I'm going to talk a little bit about afterwards. But this is kind of a really kind of nice culmination of what this program is about. So before we do that, I'm going to ask Joe to stand and be recognized again. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So enjoy our final musical selection. We're going to have a few words afterwards, but final musical selection by Joe Bush. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. But how does the rediscovery of this music continue? And we have to think about some of the pieces that we haven't found. The DeGarmo two-step that I'm asking you all to go look in your attics for me for. What about those arrangements of Ramsdale Park? Also missing. But also in need of performance of some of his other pieces that didn't really make sense for this afternoon. Songs like The Mason's Light and Oh, That's Some Kid Flying. So The Mason's Light, if we take a look at this is really more of like this would have been the perfect setting. This is more like a church hymn, 4-part harmony, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And you can see Oliver Ditson Company, copyright secured in England. Remember we were talking about that? And this other piece, more of a song. All these pieces that we had so far were primarily piano pieces that might have had some lyrics added, but this one's an actual song. So what's exciting for me is to kind of find these breadcrumbs that lead us to having a thorough and better understanding of where things come from, better sense of where things could go, what's been lost that might be worth rediscovering. And so I think Ulysses J. Alsdorf is a great example of many of these things. I know that I want to thank Mary, who early on when I started on this, I fancied myself the next Ken Burns for the Gilded Age. I did a documentary, I interviewed Mary. If you want to follow and see some of those things, you can see me and Mary having a conversation about Crawford House. It's up on YouTube. You can follow Music of the Gilded Age there. I want to thank Michael Green, who was a Newburgh resident for a long time. His passion for undiscovered music. Man, we haven't even talked about Willie Fullerton Jr., who lived here in Newburgh. There's other stories to be told. Newburgh has a long and storied history. Michael Green for helping making this event possible, his enthusiasm for sheet music. Michael's writing a book about sheet music from this time period, and I'm just going to ask him to answer with a percentage. What percentage is the book done? Now I'm expecting, he's just at the beginning of this, but Michael, what percentage? I know we're not 50%. Listen, I understand the thing. You uncover one bit. I'm like, my wife will tell you, she's sitting in the back, she's like, Chris, it's 12:30. You need to take a shower and get going here, buddy. And then I'm like, but there's more. I could put in there's more story to be told. It's in there. We found it. He's been holding out on me, folks. All right. The search for DeGarmo is over. Ramsdale Park and other pieces not mentioned, still in process. So I want to also thank, again, Joe, the Calvary Presbyterian, and all of you. You've been a really good audience. I really appreciate how game you were for all the fun and games that we had here, and that your buzzing was impeccable. Thank you.
Wasn't it a fortunate day for Newburgh when Chris Brellick walked into our parlor? Could I just look around? These are the kinds of places where music was played among friends. Let me look, let me listen, let me play. And it began the story of what music was in our community. So next time you walk down Liberty Street, and do it, get out of your car, walk down the street. Across from Washington's headquarters, go to that big stone and brick arch, touch UJ, reach up and touch those initials, and say, there you are, baby brother, of the three Alsdorf brothers. Here's the one who sang the most and was the least sung until this year when we begin to tell his story. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Calvary. Thank you, Joe, that was beautiful. You know, I have long looked at that music, a few sheet pieces, like in America, in the archives of our library and our historical society, and I can't hum a tune, let alone read sheet music. So I'd look and I'd go, da, 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 da. Like doggerel poetry, that must be what it sounds like. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Oh, no, it doesn't. Today we got the joy of knowing what it really sounds like. And the story is alive, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And thank you also to Seth Colgrove, who's sitting here quietly with cameras. This has all been recorded. So Newburgh and beyond will know this story and hear this music. Seth is a wonderful videographer who has often helped us at the Historical Society. If you go to our website, newburghhistoricalsociety.org, you find a whole virtual tour of our headquarters house that Seth did. He walked through, he overlaid the music for that. You get a visual of something that you haven't often thought about. Or if you're not nearby and your relatives aren't nearby, get them to visit. But really visit soon, because it's a rich fall of programs. This was one of the very best. But soon there will be others. So come to that workshop that Varvara Mikushkina, our photo archivist, will do with you and your kids and your family on building a zine, a little magazine story of a building in Newburgh. Come to that in October 9th, at SUNY at Kaplan Hall. A historic preservation specialist, Marissa Marvelli, has also been deep diving into our city and its story. And she has been walking the South Side, as I always called it growing up. I'm a North Side kid and rode the North Side 6 bus, but the South Side kids on the other side of Broadway. What is over there? We have too long thought the historic district is right outside our doors here on Grand Street. But on the other side are these marvelous, smaller, wonderful buildings and the stories of who occupied them. How they strove to make their place in our community is what Marissa will be telling us on October 9th at Kaplan Hall. So come and listen. Okay, thank you, everyone. There are drinks in the other room, not alcoholic. But if you want to stay and talk and ask a couple of questions, come on into the Fellowship Hall of Calvary. We'll get